Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, where we provide you with your weekly diagnosis of everything fantasy football. Whether it's season-long leagues, dynasty, DFS, or sometimes even IDP, we got you covered all year long. What's good? You know the vibes. Good morning, beautiful people. Jon Jeune here at the real Jon Jeune _FF. And welcome back to another live episode of the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast. It is week 15, y'all, the start of the fantasy playoffs. And this is where every roster move truly matters, right? Before it mattered, before it wasn't necessarily life or death, or maybe it was in week 14. But this week is win or go home. That's it. So whether you're fighting to advance in the playoffs, or you're playing, or you have a first round bye, right? And you're just sitting here watching all the chaos ensue, watching the fantasy world burn as people stress out over Jalen Hurts having a 5 turnover day by the end of it. So the waiver wire can still give you that edge for this run right here, right? So today we're going to go through the top waiver ads across every position, those priority pickups, injury fill-ins, stashes for the remainder of the playoffs, and those defenses to target over the next 2 weeks. And as always, before we get into it, make sure you check out the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Patreon at patreon.com/FFDX. And you can join for free to grab the FFDX cheat sheet, which, yes, it will run through the fantasy playoffs. Releases every Tuesday on Patreon. So go ahead and subscribe. If you want some additional perks, then you can become a supporter for just $1 a month to unlock the weekly waiver wire article, expanded rankings, and the Sunday afternoon Q&A before kickoff. So just head to patreon.com/FFDX. Unfortunately, this is probably a bad week to have this, but or maybe we might move it, but I will not be able to do the Sunday Q&A. So we might have to move it to Saturday. Saturday night will probably be the best that we could do. But we just won't be able to have our Sunday Q&A in our normal noon slot, which I know probably sucks. Just given obviously it's right before the game start, after the inactives have been released. But we'll have to do the best we can. I just can't make it work this weekend. Got a personal conflict, so priorities. But Saturday evening will probably be the best, but I will put out something on Patreon. And obviously I'll let you all know who are watching or listening on this podcast by Friday. But let's talk about the week 15 waiver show, which starts now. And let's talk some injuries, right? So Baltimore running back Keaton Mitchell suffered a knee injury, and he did not return to that game. Same with David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns, of the tight end. Indianapolis quarterback Daniel Jones out for the remainder of the season with a torn Achilles. That is obviously not great news. It's not great news for the Colts. It's not great news for Daniel Jones, obviously. Not great news for fantasy managers that were rostering Daniel Jones. So we'll talk about some pivot options here. Hopefully you have maybe another option. I know, like for me, for example, in one of my leagues, I have Jacoby Brissett and Daniel Jones, because I think I picked up Jacoby Brissett around the same time Daniel Jones was going on his bye week. And then it got to a point where it was just like Daniel Jones or Jacoby Brissett looked like a better option down the stretch for some of the weeks, right? So hopefully that you have that pivot option, or you can pivot to one of these other guys that we're going to talk about here on the lower side. But hopefully you have even some other options, because quarterback options in terms of who's available is not particularly great, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Las Vegas quarterback Geno Smith, he suffered a right shoulder injury, right being his throwing shoulder. He did not return to that game. Miami running back Devon Achane suffered a rib injury, did not return to the game, did say that he could have returned, could have played, but it seems like the Dolphins were just being precautious with him. or being cautious with him. And so he should be okay for week 15, but just something to monitor. Which is interesting though, because he did seem to grab at like his knee, but he said he fell on the ball, and that's what really kept him out. So something to watch. New York Jets quarterback Tyrod Taylor, he suffered a groin injury, did not return to that game. That was quite unfortunate there. Pittsburgh tight end Darnell Washington left Sunday's game with a concussion. Washington quarterback Jaden Daniels, he aggravated that left elbow injury, his non-throwing elbow, and did not return to that game. So it makes you wonder, they say there's no long-term concerns, but it makes you wonder if we'll see him for week 16. Sorry, if you're watching on YouTube, I just have to wipe my face. A little schedule quirk today, had to work out before the show. Full transparency, did not have time to take a shower really quick, so sweating here a little bit, so forgive me. Washington tight end Zach Ertz left Sunday's game with a knee injury, did not return. Looks like it was reported that it might be a torn ACL for Zach Ertz, so that's very unfortunate. Longtime veteran, I think he was 13 years in the league, Zach Ertz. Spent time with the Eagles, spent time with Arizona and now Washington. So, going to be interesting what happens here. Going to see if Ben Sinnott can complete the cycle, right? Highly drafted tight end, sits behind Zach Ertz for 2 years, and then Zach Ertz gets injured, and then he fills in the role. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Mainly wondering for my Ben Sinnott dynasty shares. All right, let's move on to the quarterback position. And let's talk Houston quarterback CJ Stroud, available in 58% of Yahoo leagues. The toughest part about Stroud is the Texans defense. So, that defense is so good that it limits the upside of Stroud and their offense. But he gets an Arizona defense this week that's allowed the 8th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks over their last 3 games here. So Stroud definitely a strong pivot option here if you did happen to lose Daniel Jones. Another guy that, I didn't put here on this list because he's not very widely available, but would probably be my top option is Brock Purdy. Plays Tennessee this week. Tennessee is, I think they are 3rd against the quarterback position over their last 3 games. So, he's coming off a bye week, so he could have been dropped. So he's definitely a guy I would look to. Another option could be Jackson Dart. He just wasn't, he was like available in only like 30% of leagues or something like that. But he's also a guy that might be available. He was also dropped, or he could have been dropped as they are just coming off the bye week there too. So those are definitely some other options. But if you want to get real nasty, you want to get dirty with it, I got 3 guys here for you. So grab the Pepto-Bismol and let's ride. New York Jets quarterback Justin Fields, available in 73% of Yahoo leagues. Tyrod Taylor injured with the groin, like we talked about at the top. And that means Fields could be getting back into the starting lineup, assuming that he's healthy. He did sit out week 14 with a knee injury. So, he's dealing with an ailment of his own. So we'll have to see what his status looks like. But I would have to imagine that if he's healthy, he's going to go over undrafted rookie Brady Cook. So, he obviously brings his rushing upside into a matchup against a Jacksonville defense that on the last 3 games, 24th against the position. However, going into the last couple of weeks, they were a pretty strong matchup. I don't know how much of this, I'd have to check how much of this is impacted by their most recent game against Riley Leonard. Right. Next up, Atlanta quarterback Kirk Cousins, available in 92% of Yahoo leagues. Tampa Bay allows the 4th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks over their last 3 games, putting Cousins in a decent spot in streaming territory. I think last year, Kirk Cousins threw for like 800 yards in 2 games against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, this game here takes place on Thursday night. again, it's not been all good for Kirk Cousins, but the matchup here is a halfway decent one. And if he gets Drake London back this week, that would be an even better one. So, and then moving on, we got Cleveland quarterback Shedeur Sanders, available in 92% of Yahoo leagues, was the QB2 on the week going into Monday Night Football. And after that game, I don't have to fact check that. He was the QB2, 364 passing yards, 3 touchdowns to go along with 29 rushing yards and another touchdown, and what was a plus matchup against Tennessee. He gets Chicago next, who is middle of the road versus the position over their last 3 games. It, like I said on the show a few weeks back with Shedeur, like I was not a huge fan of his during the draft process. But after seeing all the hate and all the negativity, it's hard for me not to root for this kid. Like I said, I didn't expect him to go first round, but I think he was definitely better than a 5th round talent. Maybe second round is where I probably would have, expected him to go. 3rd, honestly, wouldn't have surprised me, but the 4th and the 5th was just way too late. So, I'm excited to see him do well. I'm also trying to manage the expectations here as well. Not particularly a great offense, in terms of the weapons around him. It doesn't have a ton of upside as a rusher. So, um, you know, but I think given a matchup like he had this past weekend, will he do some good things? And most definitely. So, this next matchup here against Chicago, like I said, halfway decent one. They're 16th, literally middle of the road here against the position. So if you are hurting, you absolutely don't have any other options. Like, yeah, Shedeur Sanders makes a ton of sense there. All right, let's move on to the running back position. Let's go Arizona running back Bam Knight, available in 62% of Yahoo leagues. He came crashing down to earth this past weekend. But the schedule still looks good. He gets Atlanta in week 16, Cincinnati in week 17. Those are 2 plus matchups. Atlanta is now looking like a less of a plus matchup, 30th against the position the last 3 weeks. And then Cincinnati is 18th against the position over their last 3 weeks. So those did look like better matchups 2 weeks ago. But given the volume that he's seeing and the fact that I don't think we'll ever see Trey Benson in the year 2025, like Bam Knight is a solid option here. Next up, we got Washington running back Chris Rodriguez Jr. available in 63% of Yahoo leagues. Operated as the lead back again with 10 touches and gets a plus matchup this week against a New York Giants defense, allowing the 2nd most PPR points to opposing running backs over their last 3 games. Now, Jacory Groski-Merritt was involved a little bit more last week, but it still seems that it's the Chris Rodriguez show in that backfield. Next up, we've got LA Rams running back Blake Corum available in 67% of Yahoo leagues. Now, look, Corum probably scored his season high in PPR points this season, barring an injury to Kyron Williams. His 12 carries, 128 yards, and that says 3 touchdowns. That can't be right. It must be 2 touchdowns. Yeah, 2 touchdown day on the ground was due to the game script. Very much in hand for the game was very much in hand for the Rams. But it's just a reminder that Corum would be the next man up were an injury to Kyron to happen. Yeah. All right. Next up, we've got New York Giants running back Devin Singletary. He's available in 76% of Yahoo leagues. Tracy left Monday's game with a lower leg injury. I think they called that a hip injury after the fact. But in that game, last time we saw Singletary, he had scored double-digit PPR points, making it 3 of his last 4 games that he had done that. And this week, he gets a Washington defense that's allowing the 7th most PPR points to the position over their last 3 games. Staying with the running back position, let's talk Miami running back Jalen Wright, available in 97% of Yahoo leagues. With Achane sidelined on Sunday, it was Wright who went on to lead the backfield with 24 touches for 107 yards and a touchdown. A lot of people probably expected it to be Ollie Gordon. Um, I was actually kind of excited to see it be Jalen Wright. I'm a huge Jalen Wright fan. Really liked him and his film coming out of Tennessee. I think it was Tennessee. Um, but now Achan is reportedly okay, right, for Week 15. But in the event that he can't go, it would be safe to assume that it would be Wright again. Although McDaniels seems like to have a little mad scientist in him, where it's just he could switch up at any moment, right? So, but I would expect it to be Jalen Wright, and that's who I would prioritize coming off waivers. And then we have obviously the insurance policy running backs. Kenneth Gainwell, his usage is so hard to pin. It's like one week they use him, the next they don't, and the next week they use him. So did seem to be playing a lot on, a lot, not ahead of particularly Jalen Warren, but maybe 50-50 with Jalen Warren. And then we got San Francisco running back Brian Robinson Jr. Again, widely available. The 49ers are coming off bye, but as you're going through these playoffs, it again, I stress it during the regular season, but in the playoffs, it's you can drop the wide receiver that you're not starting because you're hoping for a breakout or something, right? Like, and you have less competition on waivers. Hopefully your league operates that way where, it's a 12-person league or a 14-person league. And if only 6 or 8 of you make playoffs, those are the only 6 or 8 of you guys making claims. So hopefully your league operates that way, but there's much less competition. So picking up these guys and cycling them through your roster definitely makes a ton of sense. We on this list, we also got Green Bay running back Emmanuel Wilson, Buffalo running back Ray Davis, Atlanta running back Tyler Algier, and then obviously the aforementioned Blake Corum. All right, let's move on to wide receiver. And I don't have a lot of guys. Literally just have 3 guys on this list. Houston wide receiver Jaden Higgins, available in 58% of Yahoo leagues. Higgins wasn't productive this past week, but he has been operating as the number 2 wide receiver in this offense behind Nico Collins in recent weeks, and now gets in an Arizona defense allowing the 8th most PPR points to opposing wide receivers over their last 3 games, right? So it's slim pickings, at the wide receiver position this week, like I said. But if this offense if they could find themselves in some semblance of an aggressive, like, passing script, then I think Jaden Higgins would be, definitely an option to target. I mean, just looking at him on the field, like, his arms are so long. He just looks like a massive human being. Yeah, so he's fun to watch, but hopefully he's a guy that we're talking about a little bit more next year as well. But let's see if he can do some stuff here down the stretch for us. Next up, we got Green Bay wide receiver Jaden Reed, available in 59% of Yahoo leagues. I can't believe I didn't talk about Reed last week. And that's on me because I just assumed. That's what I get for assuming, right? I just assumed that he was one of those guys that people just held and rostered, because there's times I wanted to talk about Mike Evans. I wanted to talk about, even Trey Benson was rostered, on the higher side when he was coming back from his injury. But Jaden Reed, again, returned from his injury in week 14, didn't do much, just 4 catches for 4 targets for 31 receiving yards. But he's been explosive in this offense. We've seen him do it before, and he's got some plus matchups down the stretch these next few weeks, and you might have some flex worthy weeks going forward. Last up at the wide receiver position, we got Chicago wide receiver Luther Burden, available in 83% of Yahoo leagues. With Roma Dunze out this past week, Burden saw 6 targets for the second straight week, catching 4 of them for 67 yards, scoring double-digit PPR points. If Odunze is out again, we would see continued involvement for Burden in this offense. Moving on to the tight end position, let's talk New York Giants tight end Theo Johnson, available in 58% of Yahoo leagues, has seen at least 4 targets in each game since week 4 and gets a Washington defense allowing the 5th most PPR points to the position over their last 3 games. Next up, Cleveland tight end Harold Fannin Jr., available in 60% of Yahoo leagues, it was career highs across the board for Fannin, catching 8 of 11 targets for 114 receiving yards and his 4th touchdown of the season. He continues to be a favorite target of Shedeur Sanders. And with the injury to Njoku, we might see even more usage going forward from Fannin. Staying with the tight ends, we've got Baltimore tight end Isaiah Likely, available in 94% of Yahoo leagues. Likely now has back-to-back weeks with exactly 12.5 PPR points, and now he gets to play Cincinnati, who allowed the most PPR points to the tight end position on the season over their last 3 games, over the last 8 games since the death of Jesus Christ. The Cincinnati defense is just the defense to attack. So let's move on. And from staying, I guess, with Cincinnati, let's talk Cincinnati tight end Mike Gesicki, available in 98% of Yahoo leagues. Gesicki is back healthy the last 3 weeks. We saw his best game of the season in week 14, catching 6 of 6 targets for 86 receiving yards and 1 touchdown reception. T. Higgins was once again in concussion protocol, so that could mean even more opportunities for Gesicki this week against the Baltimore Ravens. All right, let's move on to some defenses and special teams. And I'm kind of switching this up how I've been doing this. If you haven't noticed, I'm going by least available to most available. But I was going to say Jacksonville is probably Jacksonville is probably my second best option this week, but they're least available, so maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But Jacksonville, available in 63% of Yahoo leagues, 11.5-point favorites at home against the New York Jets. Could be Brady Cook. It could be Justin Fields. Either way, I'd expect sacks, maybe some turnovers. 11.5-point favorites at home. That's got to be good game script. My top defense would probably be San Francisco, available in 76% of Yahoo leagues. 12.5-point favorites at home against Tennessee. It's got to be pretty good, right? Next up, Chicago, available in 78% of Yahoo leagues. They're 7.5-point favorites at home against Cleveland. And then, last but not least, we've got Dallas, available in 89% of Yahoo leagues, and they are 6.5-point favorites at home against Minnesota. We've got some solid streaming options here. These are 4 very solid streaming options. Obviously, like I said last week, my top option coming into this week was probably Philadelphia. They were more available than I felt like they should have been, like over 30% of Yahoo leagues. I've talked about them for a couple weeks now, but if they're still available, I like them a lot. Going up against Las Vegas, right? After the showing that the Eagles put on last night, you probably don't want anything to do with them. But given that their defense is still pretty solid defense, going up against the Raiders, and possibly a backup quarterback to Geno Smith, you feel pretty good about that. I've checked the line. Going into last night's game, I want to say that line was somewhere around like 9.5. The Eagles are 12.5-point favorites. The Eagles were going into last night. So great option in there as well, if they are available. And then with a look ahead to week 16, the only team that I really felt comfortable that's widely available recommending this far in advance was Kansas City. They play Tennessee in week 16, and they are available in 49% of Yahoo leagues. So that is all I have for the waiver show, y'all. That is all I got. So good luck, y'all. Again, playoff season, so be intentional with every move. Prioritize winning now. That is the most important thing. Win this week. Without winning this week, there is no next week. So I know this sounds a little extreme, but if you got to drop like a stud player to create room on your roster or something, you got to do what you got to do, because nothing matters except winning this week, right? So do whatever you have to win this week. So Protect your starters. Pick up those insurance policy running backs if you can. Stay ahead by locking in the right playoff matchups. Maybe you got to play some mental games with your opponent, right? Maybe you got to bench your whole starting lineup so they sit there being like, oh my God, who are they going to start? Who are they going to fill in? Blah, blah, all this stuff, right? And they're freaking out. And instead of worrying about what they're doing, they're worried about what you're doing, right? Also, I failed to mention this at the top, but I will say this again right now. I'll say this right now. It's my reminder every single year. If you earned the bye week, bench your whole team, bench your starting lineup. Do not set a lineup. I know everyone wants to set a lineup. They want to see how they did, who would I have beat, how would my team have done. You can still do all of that by just calculating it offline, using a calculator, throw it in Excel, right? The reason I say that is because if you play in a league like Yahoo, where you're allowed to drop players after they've already played, the bye week allows you maximum flexibility because you get to bench your entire roster. And God forbid you get an injury to one of your guys in week 15. You can go ahead and drop them immediately and make a pivot or an adjustment for week 15. I say this story all the time, but one of my best friends he took this advice and he's playing. This tells you how long ago it was because Calvin Ridley was playing for the Falcons, but Calvin Ridley was in the midst of like one of his his breakout season with Atlanta. I think he broke his foot in the middle of week 15, and my friend was able to drop him during the 1 o'clock games and picked up a pivot option for the following week, right? Didn't apply to me at the time, but similar story. Kyler Murray, I had a bye week. Kyler Murray's playing. I think I can't remember if this was week 15 or week 14 actually, but Kyler Murray tore his ACL. But essentially, what the point remains. It allows you flexibility. So if you bench, if you play in a league that allows you to bet to drop players after they've already played, go ahead, bench your whole starting lineup if you have the bye week. Maintain that maximum flexibility to be able to pivot, make add drops with any player on your team, right? So, again, that's the advice I give out every year. I hope, if it trickles down to like 2 people, 3 people, 4, 5, 6, whatever a year, that's great. But definitely a pro tip. All right, so I'll see you guys on Friday for the matchup show. And I'll give you guys an update by Friday about how we're going to do the Q&A this weekend, right? So, but make sure you have those notifications on so you don't miss the week 15 matchup show. Make sure you go to patreon.com/FFDX to grab the FFDX cheat sheet, as well as the opportunity to join the supporter tier for $1 a month, where you'll get waiver wire article, expanded rankings, and the Q&A access. So just $1 a month. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Good luck on the waivers this week. Congratulations to those of you that made the playoffs. If you did not make the playoffs, please keep plugging in the fantasy content, whether it's my content, somebody else's content, or just watching the games, being locked in, right? Because this is the time where we're going to see those players that, hey, AJ Brown went off at the end of his rookie year for during fantasy playoffs. David Johnson, right? Like, you're going to want to see these guys and understand, like, why is Amon-Ra St. Brown going in the 4th round of fantasy leagues? Like, what did I miss, right? So, again, obviously, this was Amon-Ra St. Brown's 2nd year, like after his rookie year. But, just pay attention to these things, all right? Appreciate y'all. Have a good one, and we'll talk to y'all later.